Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. There's a grassroots movement which says they are frustrated with the Alberta government. The folks with Enough is Enough UCP protested in Lethbridge over the weekend, and we heard what their concerns were. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation has launched legal action against the CBC. The group's federal director explains why. And the Calgary truck driver involved in the tragic Humboldt Broncos bus crash has been ordered to be deported back to India.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. A few thousand people across the province came together this past Saturday to voice their frustrations with our current provincial government. It was a movement called Enough is Enough UCP, and it was organized by a Lethbridge woman. BCN's Jeanette Rocher was there and has more.
The UCP has got to go.
Between the signs and the chants,
enough is enough.
The message this group was sending Saturday was clear. From hands off our CPP, to protect our water, to issues with healthcare, education, and protecting the rights of trans youth, all coming together with the same goal in mind.
Danielle Smith, it's my biggest issue. Get rid of her.
The Enough is Enough UCP rally was organized by Glenda Tailfeathers.
We have to do something because people are suffering.
It was a province-wide protest taking place at the same time in 5 different cities.
Calgary, Edmonton, Vermilion, Grand Prairie, Red Deer, who else? Medicine Hat, and Lethbridge, it's been huge.
According to Tailfeathers, between 3,000 and 3,500 gathered at the various rallies around the province, including 230 people in Lethbridge coming together to recall the United Conservative Party through the group AB Resistance.
There's a lot of issues, and they're just not listening to us.
One of my big issues is their failure to protect our public resources in the Rocky Mountains, which is our wildlife, our water, our wilderness, our endangered species.
They're allowing clear cutting up in our east slopes, which will increase flooding.
I can't believe some of the stuff that the Conservatives have done. They need to get out.
I worry about the health care. To me, that's the biggest issue that we have. I know personally I haven't had a doctor since COVID.
Tailfeather says she's made over 200 phone calls and sent hundreds of emails to different UCP MLAs in the province.
I never connected with anybody. They've either got answering machines or you get a strange form letter, and they were all invited today. I called every MLA in southern Alberta and gave them a personal invitation to attend, to come and defend their positions, and we had no response.
BCN reached out to the office of Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Newdorf for comment on the rally, but did not receive a response by airtime. For Bridge City News, I'm Jeanette Rocher.
The Alberta government announced that $5 million will be given out to support the healing of children and youth who've survived sexual violence. Government officials say 1 in 3 Albertans have experienced sexual abuse while they were under the age of 18. Now, the funding spread out over 3 years will support those victims who've suffered depression, anxiety, self-harm, and PTSD as a result. Children and Family Services Minister Cyril Turton says the extra funds will support Little Warriors Be Brave Ranch in the Sherwood Park area, which is the only treatment facility of its kind here in Canada.
Little Warriors is an Alberta-based organization, and they have spent the last decade raising awareness around child sexual abuse, working to prevent abuse from happening in the first place, advocating on behalf of survivors, and of course providing treatment so that the negative experiences that these children and youth go through do not define the rest of their lives. Their treatment facility, the Be Brave Ranch, is the first and only facility of its kind in the country. It offers survivors a safe haven and the time to process what they've been through and take that first step in their healing journey.
Alberta Wildfire says that even with all of the moisture the province has received lately, 30 wildfires are still burning in Alberta. That includes 9 in the high-level forest area, 8 in the Slave Lake Forest region, and a couple near Fort McMurray, which are now being held. Emergency officials say 17 of the active blazes are carryover wildfires from previous years. Fortunately, 80% of the wildfires are under control, with the remaining 20% being held. Well, we experienced some wind again today here in Lethbridge, and some rain clouds are also rolling into our region. Jeanette Rocher is now with an early peek at the forecast. Jeanette, we may see some showers on and off for the first part of the week.
Well, more like no rain today and possibly tomorrow with those intermittent showers throughout the week. So yes. Now here's the other thing, that temperature about to rise significantly for Tuesday, seeing a high of 29 degrees. With a mix of sun and cloud, we could see that some afternoon showers there with that as well. Now tonight, seeing a few clouds with 50K winds, tomorrow 40K winds, and then those showers sticking around intermittently throughout the week. And I'll be back later in the show to give you all those details. Hal?
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. The Alberta Serious Incident Response Team wrapped up 2 investigations involving 6 Lethbridge police officers and 1 civilian employee. One involved allegations of improper access of Lethbridge West MLA Shannon Phillips' information on various databases operated by the LPS. ACERT says there were grounds to believe the 2 officers committed criminal offenses by accessing Phillips' data back in 2018. The matter was forwarded to the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service, which determined the test for prosecution was not met and those involved would not be charged. Now, the second involved allegations that improper use of databases occurred after Phillips and a colleague were observed during a meeting at a restaurant back in 2017. Once again, the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service says the test for prosecution was not met and the former officer would not be criminally charged. Now, BCN reached out to the office of Lethbridge West MLA Shannon Phillips for a reaction, but is yet to hear back. The truck driver who caused the Humboldt Broncos bus crash, which claimed 16 lives and injured 13 others, is being deported. An Immigration and Refugee Board hearing for Jaskrit Singh Sidhu announced the decision during a virtual hearing late Friday in Calgary. His lawyer said the decision was a foregone conclusion and that all that was required to deport Sidhu back to India was proof that he was not a Canadian citizen and that he committed a serious crime. Sidhu arrived in Canada back in 2014. He pleaded guilty to dangerous driving following the horrific crash in 2018 near Tisdale, Saskatchewan. Sidhu was sentenced to 8 years in prison and was granted full parole last year. Toby Boulay, the father of Logan Boulay, who died as a result of the collision, sent out a statement upon hearing the news that Sidhu is being deported. He said, "Bernadine and I are thankful for the decision as we continue to believe that Mr. Sidhu should be deported from Canada. We are prepared to remain diligent in this belief, even as Mr. Sidhu may launch further appeals." The Canadian Taxpayers Federation launched a legal challenge against Canada's public broadcaster, the CBC. Now, to chat about this in more detail is the federal director of the CTF, Franco Terrazzano, who joins us from Ottawa. Franco, does this have something to do with the CBC not coming through with the access to information law regarding bonuses paid out to executives at the CBC?
That's exactly why we filed a legal challenge with the Information Commissioner. I mean, as a matter of principle, the CBC owes taxpayers transparency, right? The CBC costs taxpayers $1 billion a year plus, so the CBC has to be transparent with taxpayers. But even above that, like, the CBC is required to follow access to information laws, and in this case, they're blatantly breaking it. Okay, so we don't know how much the president, Catherine Tate of the CBC, and the senior executives are taking from taxpayers in the form of bonuses, and that's why we filed the legal challenge with the Information Commissioner to force the CBC to release these documents and to come clean with taxpayers.
Now, March 11th, you filed an access to information request seeking details on the compensation paid out to 7 CBC senior executives last year, including bonuses. And CBC needed a little extra time with that?
They wanted to kick the can to just a couple days after their president, Catherine Tate, was at committee. So it sure smells like the CBC wanted to delay the release of these documents because Tate did not want to talk about her own bonus in front of members of parliament. So look, I mean, the CBC has released information relating to the $15 million in bonuses that it paid out to 1,100 staffers. But so far, the CBC is not willing to say how much in bonuses it paid out to its president and to the senior executives. And that's why the Canadian Taxpayers Federation has launched this legal challenge with the Information Commissioner, because you know what? We are going to drag this information into the light for taxpayers.
Thanks so much, Franco. That was Franco Terrazzano, Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, joining us from Ottawa. A school district in California settled a lawsuit with a teacher who says she was fired over her religious beliefs as a Christian after she refused to use students' preferred pronouns. The Jurupa Unified School District in Riverside County agreed to pay $360,000 to Jessica Tapia, according to her lawyers, with Advocates for Faith and Freedom. American correspondent Lisa Daftari, who is based in Southern California, says this could very well be precedent-setting.
This county is not, I mean, it's in a very blue state, but not very blue in terms of the region inside California. It's inland and a bit more on the purplish red even. So I think this is even more significant in that it may have a trickle effect. I know that a lot of teachers feel this way. Many of them have been silenced. Many of them don't want to lose their jobs. And I think this is a good start.
Lisa Daftari, host of the Foreign Desk, will also have the latest from the war in Gaza between Israel and Hamas. That's coming up in the second half of our program. One person died and 9 others were injured during a weekend Israeli attack near a hospital in a South Lebanese village.
نعم جرحى هو ابن اختي بيكون وجوز اختي الناس مجموعه من الجرحى في غاره غير مسبوقه مجنونه من عدو غاشم استهدف فيها مستشفى استهدف فيها مدنيين اظن الرساله هي ترويع الناس لمحاوله ثنيهم عن البقاء ورساله الناس هيك شايف الناس باقيه هون رغم كل جنون العدو.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says there was a technical failure after a strike by the Israel Defense Forces killed dozens of people in the southern Gaza city of Rafah.
ברפיח כבר פינינו כמיליון תושבים בלתי מעורבים. ולמרות המאמץ העליון שלנו שלא לפגוע בבלתי מעורבים, קרתה לצערנו אמש תקלה טרגית. אנחנו חוקרים את המקרה, אנחנו נסיק את המסקנות, כי זו המדיניות שלנו.
The IDF, meanwhile, continues its war with Hamas in the north, central, and southern regions of Gaza. According to TBN Israel correspondent Yair Pinto, thanks to various airstrikes, a number of terrorists have been taken out, especially in the northern region of Gaza.
The forces of the 98th Division continue to operate in the Jabalia area in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, locating and destroying rocket launchers, tunnels, and military buildings, as well as large stocks of weapons and ammunition. The battle in Jabalia is proving to be one of the most violent encounters of the entire war so far, so please be in urgent prayer for the IDF soldiers engaged in this battle. Elsewhere, the 679th Brigade under the 99th Division has seen heavy action, including battles between tanks and terrorist forces armed with advanced anti-tank missiles. Division 162 has been deployed in the Rafah area and has discovered multiple tunnel shafts and underground bunkers packed with weapons and ammunition meant to be used against IDF troops. Instead, the IDF has taken possession of these weapons and they will soon be disposed of.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived in Madrid, Spain on Monday. He was expected to sign a bilateral security agreement with the country that will help Ukraine fight its more than 2-year war with Russia amid a recent offensive by the Kremlin's forces. Treasury Board President Anita Nance says the federal government is developing a new artificial intelligence strategy for government operations. The idea is that it may help government officials be more efficient and improve services for Canadians. And Anne says it will also improve capacity for both science and research.
The question is really going to be, how can we, with this strategy, add greater efficiencies, but also simplify the interactions of the Canadian population and organizations and businesses with federal services.
As you've heard on Bridge City News, Red Lobster has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in the United States. So what does that mean for us here in Canada? Trevor Lewington, the CEO of Economic Development Lethbridge, gives us his thoughts.
That Red Lobster filing for bankruptcy doesn't necessarily mean their locations are going to close. So bankruptcy protection allows a company to restructure its debt. And there's no indication at this point if they'll close stores, how many stores they'll close. There's cycles to the economy, right? Sales go up, sales go down. We do see restaurant closures from time to time, but we see lots of new restaurants opening. So if we think about the Lethbridge market specifically, Lethbridge tends to have more restaurants per capita than communities of a similar size. So there's always activity of companies looking to come here. Lethbridge has a great quality of life. It's a very affordable market. And of course, we have lots of advantages when it comes to the agri-food sector, which tends to be a focus for us.
As for Walmart potentially opening up a store on the west side of the city, Lewington says that won't be happening anytime soon. Recreational activities, including those which promote faith in Jesus, would make the Southern Alberta Bible Camp extra special. Now, this unique place, which receives around 2,000 campers each and every year, is ready to begin its activities on June the 30th. The camp runs for about 8 weeks. John Gartley, director of the Southern Alberta Bible Camp, says that 60% of campers don't even attend a church, so this is a great opportunity to sow the seed of Christ in their hearts.
I mean, we're a Bible camp, right? So we have chapels, we have campfires. Our staff are able to share their testimonies of how God has worked in their lives. And what that means, that God is part of the everyday. You know, he's not just a Sunday God. Like he walks with us every day. He has promised things in the Bible that he'll always be with us, that he'll give us help when we need it. And I mean, these kind of conversations are so important, and we really want to talk about Jesus. We've got the beach and we've got the lake. And so we've got lots of boats there, canoes, kayaks, do fishing, lots of swimming. We've got some windsurfing boards. We do wakeboarding and water skiing. We also do the classic ones like archery and we have pelletry. We do arts and crafts. We're not full yet, so there's still a lot of room. And there's also a sponsorship program that we have. Last year, we gave sponsorships to over 900 campers and families. We just don't want that to be a barrier for kids to come to camp.
Gartley says the Southern Alberta Bible Camp has been offering unique camping experiences for campers since 1943. Wow. A special 7-foot statue in honor of the late evangelist Billy Graham will be installed where every public tour of the U.S. Capitol begins. As we hear in this next report, millions of people will be able to walk by and read both John 3:16 and John 14:6.
Our family is honored that our earthly father will be here in this capital, pointing to future generations to our Heavenly Father.
Today, North Carolina gives the nation a symbol representing one of our dearest treasures, the Reverend Billy Graham.
And it's North Carolina's honor to be able to call him our native son.
And it is altogether fitting that he should take his place among the greatest Americans here in the Statuary Hall.
Literally millions of people will walk by and read John 14:6 right there. And then they'll walk around the other side and see John 3:16. And they're going to see him pointing right there to the open book.
But seeing this statue here every day will encourage us to strive to be more like Reverend Graham and like Christ.
Not that Reverend Graham was perfect. He would have been the first to tell us that. But he believed, as many of us do, that there is redemption. And he gave his life to delivering that message.
So as we honor his memory in the U.S. Capitol today, let us never forget the Bible that he preached, the souls that were saved, and the lives that were transformed.
Great to see the honoring of the late, great Billy Graham. Well, it's been great seeing how green the coulees in Lethbridge have been with all of the moisture we've received lately, and the rain may continue off and on for this week. Full weather details are on deck. So many of the lawns in our neighborhood have never looked so green. The trees have been loving all the moisture we've been receiving. Jeanette Rocher is now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, it's better late than never when it comes to those spring showers.
Yeah, and we are going to see more of them this week, beginning with the possibility of some afternoon showers on Tuesday. We're looking at a 30% chance, along with some very warm weather on Tuesday as well, up to 29 degrees. After that, those showers sort of sticking around here and there into Tuesday night, seeing that 30% chance kind of lasting into the evening. Wednesday, clear skies, high of 17. We could see some more showers return Wednesday night with a 30%, 40% chance of showers expected on a Thursday, high of 15 degrees, then back to 17, sunny on Friday. And then the weekend, we're getting some lovely weather there. Finally, 25 for the high on Saturday, up to 27 on Sunday, that's more like it. That's actually higher than our average for this time of year. So average high is just increased to 20 degrees. We're sitting at 19.8 for that exactly. Average low for this time of year, 6 degrees. 31, that was our record high on this day. That happened back in 1986, and in 2005, we were sitting at our chilliest on this day, which was the record low. That was a -2 day. Okay, so sun rose this morning at 5:32. Our sun set this evening at 9:26. We're sitting at 15 hours, 54 minutes of daylight, getting so close to that 16 hours of daylight. That means summer is coming. So excited about that. Okay, a bit of a rainy one on the coast tomorrow. Victoria sitting at 14 degrees, seeing periods of rain in the morning there. Vancouver, 25 millimeters of rain, mostly in the eastern portions of the city there. High of 15, 24 for a high in Edmonton. Edmonton seeing increasing clouds tomorrow. Calgary could see 60% chance of showers and a risk of some thunderstorms there, high of 24 degrees. As we get into the rest of the prairies, mainly clear skies. Saskatoon is seeing mainly sunny conditions, high of 27 degrees, 24 for a high in Regina with clear skies as well. And Winnipeg looking at mostly sunny conditions, could see some clouds increasing throughout the afternoon there, and high of only 17 degrees. Now we're looking at a 40% chance of showers as we get into Toronto area. High of 19 degrees, could see a risk of a thunderstorm as well there. Ottawa saw a tornado watch in effect earlier today, but tomorrow seeing 40% chance of showers, risk of thunderstorm as well. 20 for a high there, high of 21 expected tomorrow. In Montreal seeing a rainfall warning in effect today. That could last into tomorrow as well. With risk of thunderstorm, they could see more risks of thunderstorms tomorrow as well there in Montreal. As we get into the Maritimes, 18 for a high in Fredericton, seeing 5 millimeters expected tomorrow of rain there. Halifax, quite a bit more rain, seeing 10 to 20 millimeters expected. Risk of thunderstorms there. 15 for a high, 17 the expected high in Charlottetown, with periods of rain beginning in the morning. Clear skies, though, in St. John's with a high of 16. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Lynx Air is selling off everything from life jackets to oxygen masks. The defunct Canadian discount carrier says in court filings that it has worked out details with a pair of aviation companies abroad to sell parts and equipment ranging from seats to tires to wheels and even transponders. It wants Alberta's Court of King's Bench to approve the agreements. The move is a bid to recoup a portion of the millions of dollars in losses it suffered before filing for creditor protection earlier this year. The Competition Bureau says market concentration, prices, and consumer complaints are driving its study into Canada's airline industry. The regulator says WestJet and Sunwing Airlines made up 72% of seat capacity from Western Canada last year, while new airlines struggled to enter the market. The Bureau also says domestic fares appear relatively high and more passengers are filing complaints. The market study will pave the way for recommendations to government that would improve competition and make it easier for consumers to make informed choices. One of the largest composting facilities in Canada is holding a groundbreaking ceremony for further expansion. The City of Calgary composting facility is expected to increase processing capacity to meet the needs of the city's rising population growth. The expansion is to provide an additional 60,000 tons of capacity per year for residential food and yard waste, and construction is expected to be completed by late next year. Now here's a look at today's markets, with some being closed for the Memorial Day holiday in the United States.
The TSX was up 52 points on the day to finish at 22,373. As of Friday, the Dow was up 4 points to 39,069. The S&P 500 was up 36 to 5304, and the Nasdaq was up 184 points to finish at 16,920. West Texas Intermediate oil was up 83 cents to 78.55 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 1 cent to $2.51 US. Gold was up $17.14 to $2,350.97 US an ounce, and silver was up $1.37 to $31.63 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $9.63 per bushel, barley is at $6.46, canola is at $15.22, and corn is at $7.97 per bushel. Live cattle June contract was down $1.30 to $181.60. Feeder cattle August contract was down $1.23 to $260.23. Lean hogs June contract was down 25 cents to $94.28, and the Canadian dollar was down slightly to 73.34 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, a few thousand people across the province got together this past Saturday to voice their concerns and frustrations with the Alberta government, including some of the recent legislation. It was a movement called Enough is Enough UCP, and it was organized by Lethbridge women. Hamas terrorists fired 8 more rockets into central Israel on Sunday afternoon. According to our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari from the Foreign Desk, they were launched between 2 mosques in Rafah. She'll have more details for us momentarily. Listen, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. Also, be sure to visit our website anytime to check out a number of stories and interviews. A California school district has settled a lawsuit with a teacher who says she was fired over her religious beliefs and refusing to use her students' preferred pronouns. Now, to chat about this in more detail is American correspondent Lisa Daftari, who joins us once again from the City of Angels in Los Angeles. Lisa, the Europa Unified School District in Riverside County agreed to pay Jessica Tapia a large sum of money as the federal lawsuit Tapia filed last May is now officially closed. How much money did she get?
You know, it's north of 300,000 was the settlement. But I mean, how much is she, fees and lawyers but short of all of that, this is a huge and significant symbolic victory for many teachers who feel like they have been really, the liberal mob has come after them. They have lost their jobs. They have been targeted. They have been bullied. And, you know, for that reason, I think this is a very significant issue. Now, this county is not, I mean, it's in a very blue state, but not very blue in terms of the region inside California. It's inland and a bit more on the purplish red even. So I think this is even more significant in that it may have a trickle effect. I know that a lot of teachers feel this way. Many of them have been silenced. Many of them don't want to lose their jobs. And I think this is a good start. I had interviewed a math teacher maybe 3 or 4 years ago, right in the height of the pandemic, who had lost her job. A math teacher. And why? Because the school found out that on her spare time, she is a member of a conservative organization. It's crazy. She teaches math. Why should that even come into play? You know, you think about when we were growing up, we did not even know our teachers' political affiliation, sexual orientation, what their family life was like, even if they were married or not, how many children they had, where they lived. It never came into play. And now it seems as though the teacher's identity is more important than what they're teaching or their teaching ability or the way that they basically handle or walk on eggshells around this new, you know, PC world that they have created seems to be much more important than the content that they're sharing and educating their students. So again, a very significant victory in that regard to really put a stop to a lot of this craziness.
Now, speaking of lawsuits, Lisa, what's the latest with the Donald Trump hush money lawsuit? Will we see a verdict anytime soon?
It looks like it's all wrapped up. We're waiting to see. I mean, this is New York, so will we get a not guilty for Donald Trump? We don't know, but you know, the defense always has the ability to appeal, maybe get a mistrial, maybe, you know, there's a lot of holes in this case, as those who have been following this have seen. And so, you know, anything short of a guilty verdict will help Donald Trump, and that's what the polls have been indicating, that it has only made him more popular, and maybe even a guilty verdict. I mean, he can still run. He's a first-time offender in that regard. And look, you know, not to justify anyone with any, you know, criminal accusations, but I think a lot of Americans understand the political motivations behind this trial and how it's come at this time when he is running for office. So I think a lot of Americans would just want to get back to the main issues, you know, the economy, crime, the border, and to forget about a lot of this other circus stuff that is really distracting.
Now, speaking of crime, Hamas terrorists fired 8 rockets into central Israel on Sunday afternoon, Lisa, the first since January. And the missiles were allegedly fired between 2 mosques in the Gazan city of Rafah. Fortunately, 3 were intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome anti-missile system. Did the remaining 5 cause any damage? Were there any injuries?
There were some damage to, these are all civilian areas, by the way. And I think that that was the point of this hit, was to go deeper into Israel, into central Israel, into Tel Aviv, which is very densely populated, Tel Aviv being really like a New York City, and being very symbolic in terms of its economic headquarters, where a lot of companies are, tall buildings, a lot of civilians. Again, there was damage. 2 people were injured, no casualties. But, again, this is more of a symbolic hit that Hamas is not backing down. And of course, as Israel has gone into Rafah, I know the world opinion is definitely against that, but it just goes to show if they're shooting between mosques, they're hiding in schools. More tunnels have been found in Rafah. Hostages that have been killed, their remains have been brought back from Rafah. Weapons have been found in Rafah. So again, for those who actually care about the facts, there's a lot coming out of Rafah, and I know that people are very much focused on the civilians in Rafah, which is extremely important, but more than 1 million civilians have been relocated to be safe. But again, if the goal is to root out Hamas, there has to be this Rafah campaign, because as we see, there is a lot of important infrastructure, weapons, terrorists that are there and launching from there. That is another headquarters as well.
Lisa, when it comes to the hostages, I think there are around 100 remaining or so that were kidnapped on October the 7th by Hamas. Do you think we'll actually find any more alive? That's what a lot of people are concerned about right now. That's why they haven't released any more hostages, because they may no longer be alive.
Right. And I think that is truly something that is scary to a lot of the families that are holding out hope. I saw the most recent numbers from Israel's government is that they're hoping that about 80 or more are alive with the calculations that they have done, and about 30 or so that are still on the list of hostages being held are probably not alive. How the horrific thing here, for those who have seen some of the videos come out in the last week about the women who are being held there, being raped, perhaps impregnated, being violated in the worst ways. I mean, think about the amount of damage, therapy, abuse that these women, that have endured and will require. And, you think about every hour that goes by, you think about these families that have endured this horrific ordeal, to have a loved one being held by a terrorist organization like this. There's so much senseless death and destruction and abuse in this war in its entirety. And we really hope for some sort of resolution soon. But again, the goal here being to get the hostages back and to decimate Hamas, as it is doing so much damage and continues to, and has doubled down and said it will do this again and again and again. And I think that's not something that the world can live with, let alone Israel, which is in its direct shot.
After an Israeli airstrike killed a terror operative in Akura, 15 rockets were launched at Western Galilee, northern Israel, by Hezbollah. So not only is Israel battling Hamas, but the battle and the war continues with Hezbollah as well.
Yeah, there's about 8 fronts that Israel's fighting right now, actually, when you think about it, whether it's the West Bank or Gaza or Rafah. You're talking about northern Israel, where Hezbollah, another terror organization funded by Iran's regime, and actually the most well-endowed terror organization that has upwards of 150,000 missiles that it has pointed towards Israel. What many people don't know is that from October 7th, and even before that, Hezbollah has been firing into Israel daily, into northern Israel, and many of those families have been evacuated, and there have been a handful of casualties. But that war has not escalated. Now, Israel doesn't want that to escalate, and it looks like Iran's regime is ordering Hezbollah not to escalate yet. But when they talk about this Hezbollah and Israel war in terms of its military, just manifestation, generals in Israel talk about it as a when and not an if. This will absolutely happen. We're thinking midsummer. This will, escalate into something very bad. And, Hezbollah, again, having that military might, we don't know if the Iron Dome is able to capture all of those missiles. And it's a horrific ordeal and speculation. We don't know what will happen, but for now, Israel has been able to focus on the Hamas war. If the Hezbollah war is to escalate at the same time, it will create a huge challenge militarily for Israel, and again, a huge existential threat. This is the ring of fire that Iran's regime sought to create surrounding Israel, hoping to make it from the river to the sea, meaning Israel should not exist. It should be off the map. And that is why it has put its terror proxies in a way to surround Israel, to intimidate Israel, and now to engage in these military conflicts.
4 U.S. military support vessels involved in the construction of that humanitarian pier in Gaza broke free from their moorings after experiencing some pretty heavy surf over the weekend. Now, U.S. Central Command announced that there were no injuries. But, Lisa, let me ask you, did it impact aid deliveries?
Absolutely. And that is what the fear was. This was a horrible idea from the get-go. And the reason for that, Hal, is, look, everybody wants aid delivered to those who need it, regardless of which side. Now, when we talk about the aid reaching the Palestinians, people very conveniently forget to realize that the reason why aid is not getting to the Palestinians is because of all the bad actors that are stopping it from getting to the Palestinians. So every time there is an aid truck, that the materials are taken by Hamas terrorists and then sold to the Palestinians. I've seen the footage of markets where they're actually doubling and tripling the price for the poor Palestinians who can't get that aid. There are people shot at when they're trying to basically rush the truck and grab the materials. And this pier, I mean, this is taxpayer money, U.S. taxpayer money that's going to construct a pier. It's I guess on the outset, it would be a wonderful idea if that we're dealing with normal, peaceful groups and governments, but we're not. This pier right now is not allowing the aid to get any further, and in the long run will become another terrorist hub. We're just allowing them to have more infrastructure and more ways to get weapons and smuggle all types of weaponry, to Hamas. And that for that reason, it is failing in the first hours of its construction. And that is a huge sign to the United States as to this is not the way to handle this war. In many ways, I think this has been a wake-up call that, the handling of this war has been something that the Biden administration is basically chasing, meaning they're always behind in realizing what is necessary and what the reality is. Whether it's in rhetoric and pivoting from one to the other, neither side is happy with the Biden administration and how they're handling this war. And then in terms of being realistic, yes, aid needs to get to the Palestinians, but why is it not getting there? Yes, we need to get into Rafah because of Hamas. So why are we tying the hands of our democratic ally, Israel, in the Middle East to not allow them to go in there and decimate Hamas? It's for votes, obviously. We're dealing with in an election year. This is the worst time to have this war, and perhaps a calculation on the part of the Iran regime and Hamas to launch this war right now. But I think it will cost the Biden administration. It will cost Democrats across the board because of the handling of this war has been a horrific foreign policy blunder on our part.
U.S. defense officials, Lisa, say that 3 U.S. service members were injured in a humanitarian mission in Gaza, including one who remains in critical condition. But the injured were not harmed in combat?
Right, and exactly right. We've seen a lot of this before in different parts of the Middle East, and this, again, it comes back to the reality of the situation. They're just there to help and to provide aid, and look at the reality of the situation. I mean, obviously, look, it's a war zone. It's not safe for anybody, even if you are, on a mission to bring in supplies and aid. But the fact that, it's not safe for them to deliver the aid, it says a lot about just the conditions there and the plight of the Palestinian people. We have said for many years, I wrote an article in 2014 focusing on, if you care about the Palestinian people, we must call out Hamas. We must root out Hamas. The number one enemy of Hamas has always been the Palestinian people, and now they have managed to brainwash a majority of the Palestinian people against Israel, focusing again on that enemy and forgetting about the fact that the Palestinian people, just before October 7th, were on the streets protesting Hamas, their own government. They have never allowed for good things for their people. Under the Trump administration, the Palestinians in Gaza were offered, a prosperity deal where they would get hotels and they would get resorts and they would get infrastructure and, $50 billion worth of just building and building and building. And they didn't even read the proposal. It was dead on arrival. That tells me and tells everyone else that they don't want good and they don't want prosperity and they don't want a future for their people. And if they did, they would not involve them in this kind of war.
Let's talk about the other war for just a moment here. There are reports surfacing from Reuters that Russian President Vladimir Putin may accept a Ukraine ceasefire on current military positions. Lisa, could we potentially see peace talks to end the 27-month-long war?
Yeah, so-called peace talks. Look, this is a very strategic play by Putin. As we know, Putin marks his victory by the acquisition of land. So it has always been that way for Russians, right? The more land you have, that's how you know you won. You're growing the empire, and you continue that way. Right now, if he were to stop, he basically feels like this is a tipping point. He will acquire land because he's saying the ceasefire and the end of the war would be to mark where they are right now in terms of battle. So he would annex that part of the Ukraine. But at the same time, he feels like he might be losing, public opinion about himself and the war. You don't say, right? 27 months into this conflict, he feels like he cares about the opinion of the Russians. So he thinks this is a win-win. If he would sit down, he potentially could agree, and this is based on 4 sources that reported this to Reuters. So let's see. You never know with this guy. I mean, he can deny this all he wants tomorrow and say this never happened, or perhaps this is something that he could agree to potentially.
She's our foreign affairs expert and host of the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari. Thanks so much for joining us once again from Los Angeles.
Thank you so much.
Well, the world has always been a challenge to navigate, but perhaps it's the most challenging it's ever been today, especially for young people. So where can teens go to find a safe place, maybe some advice, acceptance, and encouragement these days? Well, joining us from Lethbridge to shed some light on this is Jordan Schellenberg. He is the CEO of Youth One, located on 13th Street North in Lethbridge. Jordan, great to have you with us today. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's start out. Let's maybe tell us what Youth One is all about and how it got started.
Yeah, great question. So we've been around for almost 10 years now, locally founded right out of Lethbridge. And so almost 10 years ago, we really found that in many communities, there is a lack of youth-focused spaces where teens could come that was safe, that was inclusive, that really gave them opportunities that they maybe wouldn't have before. And in Lethbridge, it's not really a stat to be proud of, but we have one of the highest child poverty rates in Alberta. Latest research that came out is in Canada, almost 1 in every 2 young people grow up without a mentor or positive role model in their lives. And then you add the increase in mental health issues stemming from trauma-related incidents. And we just really thought there was an opportunity there. And so that's why Youth One provides prevention-based out-of-school programs, meals, and support services for teens and families in our neighborhoods, and that's with no financial barrier.
Yeah, those stats are a little bit alarming. So was this kind of started more to be like an after-school program type of a thing?
For sure, yeah. Originally, we started just for high school students between the hours of 3 and 6 p.m., which is typically a high crime rate for young people. That would be a national stat. It's just unsupervised time and lack of spaces for youth to attend if they're not a part of any clubs or sports teams. And so that's really where it started. And then from there, based on feedback from families and youth, we grew and started offering more opportunities. So,
What's your background, Jordan? Did you kind of grow up like this? Were you a latchkey kid, or were you, kind of like a youth pastor? What motivated you personally to get involved in this?
Yeah, so I mean, growing up as a kid, I was a pastor's kid.
Okay.
My dad was a pastor, but as I got older, we actually grew up across the street from where Youth One was at the time. That seems like a long, long time ago. But my background, once I got older, was actually I had gone to school for policing. And in that education that I received, I really was drawn to prevention-based programs. Is rather than entering into a young person's life when they've broken the law or got in trouble in that form, I wanted to be the one helping with programs that would prevent that from happening and really kind of walk alongside youth. And so that's where my background was, and it led to us discovering this need and starting Youth One.
Oh, that's amazing. And it started when, about 9 or 10 years ago?
Yeah, in 2014. So come this October will be our 10th year.
Okay, and it's grown quite a bit since it was launched, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. We always joke around how we had our first day of opening, we had one youth show up, and we thought, okay, maybe there's not a need here. But yeah, now we see about, this year we're on track to see over 700 registered youth for the school year, and we roughly see about 430 youth in attendance every week.
That's amazing. It all started with just one child.
That's right. I know. Play off the name, right?
And you have all kinds of activities going on for the kids. So what are some of the most popular for the kids to do?
Yeah, that's right. So we really enjoy playing. Like we take a lot of value in play. And then we also offer support for the youth. But many of our activities when youth come in is things that they just like to do. And so we have a skateboard ramp in our facility where we can teach skateboarding and scootering and all those kind of things. We have a climbing wall. We have different media centers, access to computers. We do crafts every day, meals. We have board games, pool tables, like the list goes on. As we always look at what are just activities youth like to do, and we'll try our best to provide them. And it just really sets us up for youth to keep on coming back, and opportunities for our volunteers just to get involved in their lives and doing different activities with them. So,
And is it free for kids to join or to come and attend?
Yeah. So one big thing we always kind of put in our mission is that there's no financial barriers. So any youth that wishes to attend, as long as they're between the ages of 11 and 18, they're able to access all of our programs and services.
Okay, now that sounds great. What are, in your opinion, you work with the kids all the time, but what are some of the biggest issues that young people are dealing with today? Is it online bullying or peer pressure?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very tough world to grow up in. It's changed a lot, even from when I was growing up. Like I mentioned before, mental health issues that many times stem from trauma at younger ages, lack of resources for opportunities. I think lots of people are struggling financially right now. It can greatly affect the healthy development of a young person. And so our goal is just to come alongside youth, whatever stage of life they're at, love on them and offer what we can to help them really tap into their full God-given potential that we think they have.
Yeah. So what do you find when you're mentoring these kids? What are the biggest things that they're kind of dealing with?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of those things. A lot of mental health struggles, and it could just be from like good stress, like I've been cramming for this test and I don't know how I'm going to do, and we work with them to really like deep rooted issues where they need some assistance that's even larger than us, that we're able to connect them in the community and get them help. So it could be, I've just been kicked out of my house, I don't know what to do, and we're able to connect them. We don't offer housing, but we know people that do. And so we have those relationships already, and we're able to help guide them into those supports that they need.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I understand that sometimes you guys help youth find jobs or find housing or assist with their education. What does that look like? How do you do that?
Yeah, so one of our programs is called The Point, and they can access that throughout the day as long as they call ahead and make an appointment. But if it's anything that we can offer in-house, helping them find jobs, job-related skills, like what should I do at an interview or where, and then those other things, that needs a little bit more intervention. So we're not an intervention family center, youth and family center, but like I said, we have those relationships with other organizations in the community, like Woods Homes, Lethbridge Family Services, that if there's some professional help that's needed, we're able to direct them appropriately.
Wow. And then you also have a youth program, right? So can you maybe explain what this is?
Yeah. So it's our main fundraising program. And so all of our fundraising events raise money for this program. When we ask for funds throughout the year, our monthly supporters, it all goes towards this. It's called the Launch Forward program. Essentially, what we did was we evaluated what it actually was costing one youth to attend for a full year. and it was roughly $100 a month. So kind of like a gym membership. This includes full access to meals and snacks every day, access to professional trained staff. We have 2 sites now, so access to both sites and all the programs. And so what people can do is at these events, our fundraising events, or even if they want to sign up for monthly support, so we say for every $1,200, it's covering the equivalent cost of one youth to attend the full year of all these programs. And so every year it increases because we're growing, but this year we had to fulfill 430 individual youth sponsorships for the entire school year. So that's what we're raising money right now for.
That's incredible. Now, you mentor youth. So what does that look like? Is it one-on-one? Is it, you know, a bunch of kids just hanging out with somebody? How do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of group mentorship. So, you know, with the amount of youth coming in, it's very difficult to always just be doing one-on-one. But as the relationship grows, those opportunities happen where, you know, we will take a youth out for coffee, or we'll go to the movies with them, or show up to a basketball game and cheer them on. Our desire is to see those relationships grow, and that they have that healthy adult in their life that really actually does legitimately care about them. And that's where we see conversations beginning to happen, discussions about, you know, life in general, and where they're going, and you know, just direction in life. And so we just want to walk alongside them. And so whether they just participate as a group, or they really connect with one of our volunteers and meet with them outside of our regular programs, we just want to see that relationship grow.
Yeah, I bet you must delve into those deep existential questions, right? Like, what's the purpose of life? Why am I here? That sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really do. And we just move at the pace of the relationship, right? So our offering is everyone is welcome here as long as you're the appropriate age. These spaces and these programs are for you. We're here for you if you need it. And our hope is that as the relationships grow, we're able just to help them navigate life. And that can be everything from practical support, like assistance and finding a job, to really those deep discussions about, you know, even the purpose of life.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Now you were mentioning you work with kids 11 to 18 or 19, right? So is there a particular age group that comes out more to Youth One than others? Or does it really make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the program, right? So we have a lot of middle school youth that attend here. They just really love being wild and crazy and participating in all the games that we offer. And then once they get to high school, they kind of settle down a little bit, and that's where, you know, you start having those deeper conversations. But you know, they like to just be a little bit more social and chat with each other, and you know, so I would say it's a mix for sure. But then we also have those high schoolers that they even start to say, yeah, I want to give back now. And so they start volunteering with the younger groups as well. So it's just a mix depending on the programs.
Yeah. Do you have any kids that stick with it through the 7 or 8 years that they're kind of going through those ages?
Yeah, we found that a lot of times if the young person starts in grade 6, they will attend as long as they're in the neighborhood and it's accessible to them, and their life situation doesn't change, that they will attend up until they graduate. So some really cool stories that stem out of that.
Oh, I bet. What kind of feedback do you get from the kids and from the parents?
Yeah, we get so much feedback in all different areas, from people in the community to parents. The unfortunate side is a lot of times youth, once they graduate and age out, they kind of move on with their life. And so you do get really cool stories. We had last week one youth that was 25, and I had known them for about 12 years. And they came in, and I remember them, and they were a challenge for sure. But they reminded us, and they said, you know, we wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for the services that were provided. And so when you hear about those kind of stories, you're reminded of the important work that we get to do. And so feedback like that is awesome. We get simple feedback. We do a biannual survey with the youth where we hear, hey, this program sucks. You need to change this, right? And so we're like, yeah, okay, that's cool. Like, why does it suck? And we're able to adapt and really figure out what youth and families are looking for and how we can assist them the best.
No, that's awesome. What is your adult to kid ratio look like there? How many kids you let in, for example, at one time?
Yeah, so 1 to 8. So for every 8 youth, we try to have one trained staff or volunteer on hand. We think even 1 to 8 is tough to really connect with youth, especially when in a middle school program. Everyone's just there to, play. And so we try our best to delve into those relationships a lot, but having that 1 to 8 ratio gives us the best chance to do that. Anything more than that is even better. So.
Wow, amazing. Well, thanks so much for the work that you do and for being with us today, Jordan.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me again.
Great having you on. Jordan Schellenberg is the CEO of Youth One. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.